Daf Kuf Yud Het, 19 lines down by the beginning of the Gemara. The Mishnah just mentioned cases of people who are not sure whether or not they borrowed and or not sure whether or not they paid back. The difference about who has the money, who does not have the money in order to be a chayav or patur. The Gemara says, Itmar, we have a bright top. Someone tells someone else, you owe me $100. The other guy says, I don't know. Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda Amri, these two rabbis say, Hayav, you have to pay it back. They say you're patur. Why? Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda Amri Hayav, they say you're Hayav because Bari v'Shema Bari Adif. If you have one person claiming that I know for sure you owe me, and the other guy says, I don't know, then the guy who is sure is stronger. But they say you're patur. Why? Because we have a hezakah that the guy who has the money, and if you want to extract from him, bring proof. Otherwise, you keep the status quo. Your claim is not good enough. Tanami of Mishnah. However, if the guy told him, I don't know whether he lent me money, he's patur. Why? What's the case in that scenario? If you're talking about the guy didn't ask for the money in the first place, and that's why patur. That means the first case is also where the guy didn't ask for it. So why would be the first case who obviously he did ask for it. But then if the case is referring to he did pay for it in both cases, then how come the second Mishnah says you'd be patur if the guy's asking for it? We should be the same as the first. So what's going on? Referring to where he did not ask for it. And the Mishnah that says you're patur, you're chayav, sorry, is where the Mishnah is giving you advice to be poteris to fulfill your deshmaim in case you're chayav, meaning your obligation in case you're hayab, you should be poteret just in case by paying it off. Someone told his friend, I $100. I don't know, hayav. You have to pay. Bedin, no. Beba, is referring to if you want to just be just in case you owe the money, just be done with it. New Mishnah, someone stole a lamb from a flock. And he returned it without telling the guy he gave it back. Umet or nignav, if then it died or was stolen afterward, hayav b'achrito chayav. Lo yadu ba'alim lo b'gneivato v'lo b'chesed. Let's say the owner did not know it was stolen or returned. Umanu eteton ushlimahi. Then he ended up counting it and saw that it was complete. He had 10 sheep. You stole it and returned it without him knowing. He recounted it. He had 10 still. Patur, you're patur. What is going on? There's a four-way machloket how to explain our Mishnah. Amarav, ladat, if the item is stolen with the owner knowing, tzarich da'at, he has to let him know that he's returning it. Shelo ladat, if the owner does not know it, minyan poter, and when the guy counts it and he knows he has enough, that is enough for the return, he doesn't have to let him know. Vechik tani umanu, in the last part of Mishnah, which says that the guy counted at tatzon, v'ishlemad, when he counted the sheep and it was complete, asef asoma, the second case, without the da'at. Shmuel says, ben the dot, ben shlo dot, whether or not the guy knows minyan poter, him counting it is enough. When it says that he counted it and he was good and the guy's patur, akula, that's referring to the entire Mishnah because once he counts, it's good enough. Rabbi Yochanan says, the dot, yeah, if you stole it with the guy's knowledge, minyan poter, counting it makes him patur. Shlo dot, if he doesn't know about it, afil minyan nami lo tzarich, he doesn't even need to count it because he never knew about it. Because when it's Mishnah gave it, the last part of the Mishnah said that if he counted it and he saw it was complete and therefore it's patur, Aresha is referring to the first part of the Mishnah where the guy knew about it. Rav Histamar, fourth opinion, Lada'at, referring to where he knew about it. Minyan poter is enough to be, and he counts it, that's enough to be poteret. Shaloda, if he did not know about it, Tzarich dat, he has to let him know. And when Mishnah mentioned that he counted it and it was good and the guy's patur, Aresh is referring to the first case. Amarava, what's Rav Hizda's reasoning? My time Rav Hizda, Ho'il ve'ankre genichra bereata. It got a taste of freedom. The animal got a taste of freedom being outside the pen, and therefore once it did that, it has a hazard of trying to escape or being more unruly, and it might die or get lost. So therefore, you have to let the owner know that you took it out. Okay. Does Rava really hold this? Does Rava really hold that the halakha according to Rav Hizda? In case of a guy who saw his friend steal a sheep from his own flock, and the guy saw his friend saw another guy trying to steal a sheep from his flock, ורמה בכלל, yelled at him. ושתייה, the guy threw it down. He doesn't know if the sheep was able to make it way back to the flock. Umet or nignab, and then they found out that the sheep was stolen or died. Hayav the thief is chayav. My love, the afagad money. It sounds like even if the guy counted it and it was complete, he's chayav. Gemara said, look at nine. He didn't count it, and therefore he is chayav. That's why he's chayav. Gemara says, does Rav really hold that if the owner knows about it, he has of the theft, he has to let him know when it's returning? And if he doesn't know about it, he doesn't have to, and he counts his patur. Amarav, if the thief returned the stolen animal to the owner's flock while in the desert, he's patur. Right? So there's no notification, no counting going on. It's in the middle of the desert. Amarav Hanan Baraba, Modera Bikirata. Over there is referring to a spotted animal, the an animal with distinctive features, and therefore you don't need to notify him or count it. It's pretty obvious. Lemek tonight. Therefore, machloket between regarding our Mishnah, maybe it's a machloket of Tanaim. Hagonev Talim and Aider. Braita says that if you steal a sheep from a flock, vesela menakis, or a coin from a purse, lemakum sheganav yachzir, you have to return it to the place where you stole from. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva says tzrich dat ba'alim, you have to let the owner know. Savruha kula alma itluhu Rabbi Yitzchak. Everybody thought that maybe everybody held like Rabbi Yitzchak. Damar Rabbi Yitzchak holds. Adam asu mashmesh b'kisot b'chosha. A person has a habit of checking his money to see if it's secure. My lab b'siladat Rabbi Shmuel. Maybe it's referring to a case where the guy knew it was stolen, and therefore it's machloket regarding Rabbi Shmuel. Meaning Rabbi Shmuel is saying that like Shmuel, that even if the guy knows that it was stolen, once he returns it, he's patur. You don't have to let him know. And Rav would hold not. The Gemara says, but it's a case where the lamb was stolen without the guy knowing. And that's a machloket in regarding to Rav Chisda and Rav Yochanan. Right? Maybe you could say that's the part of the machloket. The machloket between Rav Chisda and Rav Yochanan is where whether or not you have to count the animal after the animal was stolen. Like we just mentioned. And that's also not necessarily the case. Amar Razvid, it's referring to where the lamb was stolen from the owner's property. Everybody would agree to Rav Chisda that once you stole from the owner's property, you have to let him know, because he has to know that his animal tasted freedom, otherwise it'll try to escape. Rather, it's machloket whether or not a shomer who stole an animal from his own property, and he was watching this animal on his property, decided to steal it and decided to return it. Does that mean he has to return to the place where he stole it from, or do he have to give it back to the owner with or without notification? Rabbi Akiva holds that yes, you have to notify him, because once you stole it, you're no longer the shomer. Rabbi Shmuel savar lo katal shmerto, since the owner does not know. The shomer, your status as a shomer did not stop. Okay. Lema minyan poter tonight. Let's say the machloket is a machloket tanaim of whether or not the owner counting it makes the thief patur. The Tanya is right up. The guy robbed his friend money, let's say $10, and the next time he paid him money, he threw an extra $10 in to pay him back. Is he yotze or not? Tana hada yatsa. One opinion holds yes, another part holds not. Everybody would originally hold that maybe everybody held like Rabbi Yitzchak. A person checks his money, and therefore my lab hakim maybe machloket is based off the following: Demar yatzad sarmian pater. One holds it because the guy counts it, and therefore once he counts it, he realizes. And the one who holds that he's not yotzer, he holds that counting does not make him patur, because obviously the guy counted it. Where it says the Amre is viral Yitzchak, the hell of Rabbi Yitzchak, Kula Amalot Pligid in Poter. Everybody agrees that he counted his Poter. Poter. Other Rabbi Yitzchak Mitzvah to Machloket, maybe whether or not they hold the Rabbi Yitzchak. More Itla Rabbi Yitzchak, one who holds that you counted it in your Patur, he holds like Rabbi Yitzchak that holds counting is good enough. One Rabbi Yitzchak and one holds that you're not Yot says because he holds that does not change anything if he counts it. Even a different answer. The Kula Amma Itla Yitzchak, everybody holds Rabbi Yitzchak. Vila Kasha had the money Bramma Labekize. The first right to hold Yot says where he counted the money and put it into his purse, and therefore the guy has it. But had been the other case where Yot says where he put it into his hand. In the hand, he could throw it into a coin box. He won't even know that he got overpaid. Another answer is he put it in the purse. And one holds that you're not Yotzei is where there's other money, so the guy doesn't know he got overpaid. The other opinion holds that the other opinion is referring to where he did not have extra money in his purse, and that's why he was Yotzei, because the guy knows that he got overpaid and he was reimbursed for the theft. New Mishnah. You should not purchase wool, milk, or baby goats from hired shepherds because it was probably stolen. And you should not buy wood or fruit from the watchmen of fruit orchards. Also because it might be stolen. And you could buy woolen garments from married women in Yehuda, and linen garments from Galil, and calves in Shomron. You have no reason to assume that the women are stealing it from their husbands and selling without permission. But once the people told the purchaser to hide what you're buying, asur. You can't buy it because then you can assume that it's stolen. You could buy eggs and chickens without any worry at all because because they're cheap, a person won't risk being caught for theft for such cheap items. Maybe in 2022 when eggs were $1,000 each, it wouldn't apply. A person cannot buy from shepherds either goats or baby goats. Not different types of wool or fleece. But you could buy sewn garments because it belongs to them, right? Shinui ma'aseh, you change the physicality of the item, and therefore, because now a different item, it belongs to the stealer, and therefore you could buy it from them. You could also buy milk and cheese in the wild, in the wilderness, but not in a domestic local area, because uh might be stolen, but a person won't bring the milk and stuff to the wilderness. A person can buy 4 or 5 sheep at once. We'll explain what does that mean, 4 or 5. Either it's 5 or 4. 4 would exclude 5, 5 would include 4. Which one? So you can buy 4 or 5 sheep fleeces at once, but not 2 sheep or 2 fleece. Right? So 4 or 5 sheep or 4 or 5 fleece, but not 2 sheep or 2 fleece, which what leads to number 3 is a big question. Rabbi Merida says, by tot lokin mahen, you could buy domestic sheep. Midbarot in lokin, and you can't buy wild sheep, yani sheep that are kept outside the city. We'll explain everything shortly. So the general rule in the matter and everything is basically anything that it's the owner that the shepherd will sell and the owner will realize it's missing, lochin mehen, you could buy. And margishbo, if the owner won't realize it's missing, and lochin mehen, you cannot buy. That's the reason of the numbers of the sheep. Because if something is substantial, the owner will realize you cannot buy it from the won't realize you can't buy it. Because then that's why the guy is selling it, because he's stealing it. Amar Mor. You could buy 4 or 5 sheep at a time or 4 or 5 fleece at a time. The Gemara says, once you could buy 4, for sure you could buy 5. The Gemara says, they're referring to where the guy has 5, and you're buying 4 out of 5. That's a substantial amount. We could have a different explanation. You could buy 4 sheep from a small flock and 5 sheep from a large flock. It's a substantial amount from each. Hagu Vakasha. The Gemara is 1 second. Amar, in the first part of the Braita, you said 4 or 5 sheep or 4 or 5 fleece. That sounds like 4 or 5, yes. That's excluding 3. But the second part of the Braita says, not 2 sheep. But that means you could buy 3. Lakasha, not a question. Habib Bariyata, when you could buy 3, yani including 3 is referring to healthy sheep. That's substantial. The guy counts it. But in the first part of the only 4 or 5 is referring to weak ones. Weak ones, the owner doesn't count as well, and therefore 4 or 5 is a lot more, and therefore that will be substantial, but the owner will realize. You can buy domestic sheep, but not wild sheep. ELIYAHU. How do you do that? When he's giving the rule of domestic and wild, is he going on the first part and being strict, or the second part of the Braita and being lenient? What does that mean? Is he referring to the first part of the Braita and being strict? Where he's saying in the first part, you can buy 4 or 5 sheep. That's referring to domestic. But regarding to wild sheep, you can't even buy 4 or 5. Or more, perhaps, is referring to the second part of the Braita and is being lenient. The Amar, which he's referring to, you can't buy two sheep or two fleece. Hani million bariot is referring to domestic sheep. Aval baitot, but regarding domestic, shtaim nami lochin, you can even buy two. Right? So are we including two or excluding two regarding domestic? Gemara says, Tashma, we can bring a proof. The Tanya, Rita says, Lochin baitot mehen ve'en lochin mehen bariot. You can buy domestic sheep, but you can't buy wild sheep. Ubchol makom lochin mehen arba'a v'chamishat zon. But you can always buy 4 or 5 sheep. Mida amar b'chol makom, the fact that he said you could buy 4 or 5 anywhere, Shema mina asefaka is referring to the second way of reading it, where you can only buy 2 sheep, and therefore he's being lenient with 4 or 5 over here. Shema mina, that's a good proof. Next part of Mishnah says, "Lo shimon pirot, you cannot buy fruits and stuff from the watchman of fruit." Rava zavin shibashta me'arisa. Rava one time bought grapes from a sharecropper. Amar lebayed, but our Mishnah said, "Lo mishum pirot bazim pirot." You can't buy water fruit from the watchman because they probably stole it from the fruit orchards. Amar le hanimili dishmet let begufe baramidi. That refers to a watchman who doesn't own the property. Ava aris idit legebe, but the sharecropper who literally has his partnership with it. I can assume I'm buying it from him. You can buy fruits from the watchmen of fruit orchards when they're sitting publicly in the open and selling. And their fruit baskets are in front of them and the scales in front of them. They got nothing to hide. But if once he said, don't hide your purchase, hide it in a bag, that means they're hiding themselves asur. You could buy it in the front of the garden, but don't not in the back of the garden. If they're running a black market, then obviously they stole it. Itmar, Gazlan, me'emat mutar leknot memeno. Regarding to a robber and he has his own stuff, when is it considered mutar to buy from him? Rav Amar Rav says, as long as the majority of the items that he has are belonging to him, then it's mutar because the minority is the stolen stuff. Ushmul Mar, afilu mi'ayt shelo, even if it's majority stolen, the minor is his, it's okay. Rav Yehuda actually was posek for Ada, one of the assistants, even if for the opinion that if the minority is the robber's possession, yani majority is stolen, it's still okay to buy. Okay. Mamon Masur, a Moser's property. Rav Huna Rav Yehuda Amar Mutar La'abado Biyad. Rav Huna says you're allowed to destroy it personally. One opinion holds you can't destroy it. One opinion holds you can destroy it. Lo hamor begufo. His money should not be more strict than the guy's body, and you're allowed to kill him, so for sure you're allowed to destroy his body. One of holds you can't do it. Because you never know whether or not his descendants will be tzaddikim. Uchtiv, as the pasuk says, Yachin Rasha v'tzaddik Yilvash. The wicked one prepares, and the righteous one clothes himself. Yani the righteous one will enjoy it. So it's referring to the Rashaz tzaddik, the Rashaz tzaddik children. Rav Hizda had a sharecropper. The Havatakil ve'Hivtakil v'Shakil. He would weigh the produce and give Rav Hizda his share, and then weigh his own share. Maharsha explains this to explain that, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. That's his job. Because we're about to say that Rav Hizda fired him. So what's the problem with that? Maharsha explains that he had two scales. One was a bigger scale, one was a smaller scale. And therefore, to cheat Rav Hizda out, he would switch the scales. So Salkeh, Rav Hizda fired him. Karan Afshan, he applied himself to Pasuk, Tzafun Tzaddik Helachote. The tzaddik will store away the wealth of the sinner. Kimat, next pasuk. Kimat tekvat hanef ki yivsa ki yesh Eloha nafsho. What is the hypocrite's hope when he steals? For God will throw away his soul. Rav Huna Rav Hizda. Rav Huna is there. What does it mean? One is referring to that God will throw away the soul of the victim. One holds that the soul of the robber will get thrown out. Meaning, does that mean that, what does it mean the victim's soul get thrown out? That means that when you steal from a person, it's as if you stole his soul, it's as if you killed him. Another opinion holds that no, it's referring to the robber. Hashem will throw away his soul. One who explains that it's referring to the victim's soul. Stealing from someone as if you killed them. One who holds that you stole from the robber is referring to the soul of the robber that gets thrown. The pasuk says, "Al tigzol dal ki dal hu ve'al tzedaki ani b'shar ki Hashem yarib rivam ve'kavat kovhem nefesh." Don't steal because God will come after you personally. So we see that God punishes the robber with his life because he stole. Now, according to the opinion holds that it's referring to the robber's soul, what does he do with Haktiv Nefesh Ba'alav Yikach? What does he refer to how does he explain the other pasuk? Where it says, no, my Ba'alav, what do you mean the owner? Ba'alav dahashta is referring to the owner, the current owner, yani the robber, the new owner who stole it. God's coming after you. Vidas nami, when you hold the opinion who holds that's referring to the victim. How does he explain the other pasuk of Haktiv vekavat kovim nefesh? Hashem will rob the soul of the robber. How does he explain that pasuk? Matam kamar. He says no. Maitam vekavat kovim. Why does God kill the robber for stealing? Is because of his pasuk. Mishum tegavei nefesh, because they stole your soul by stealing from you. That's why God does midah keneged midah. We'll stop here. Amen ve'amen.